All right, let's wrap up this week. We're going to review strengths based on percents. This is all about solutions, which we talked about last week. Remember, a solution has two parts, the solvent, which is what the drug is dissolved in, and the solute, which is the stuff that's being dissolved. Keep in mind that when we're talking about things like a solid and a solid, things like that, that they aren't technically dissolved, but they are mixed together in such a manner that you cannot pull them apart. So when we talk about solid and liquid and liquid and liquid and solid, the whole idea behind the solution is that once you put them together, they're no longer able to be separated. When we talk about strength and we refer to it as a percent, it's always per 100. So if the solvent is a liquid, it's always per 100 milliliters. If the solvent is a solid, it's per 100 grams. So keep those things in mind as we talk about these next problems. So here's our first problem. We want to know how many grams of hydrocortisone powder are contained in 20 grams of a hydrocortisone 2.5% cream. Remember, we said before, anytime you see that strength, that 2.5%, you know you're going to have to write a proportion. And you know what one side of the proportion is already going to be. 2.5 means 2.5 grams of the powder in every 100 grams of cream. And we want to know how many grams of powder are in 20 grams of cream. Again, make sure you're writing labels for everything. It'll help you keep everything in the right positions. Now we're ready to multiply. Cross multiplication, 100 times n is 100 n, and then 2.5 times 20 is going to go on the other side. When we multiply 2.5 times 20, we get 50. And then remember, we're going to divide both sides by whatever is with the letter. So in this case, we're dividing both sides by 100. And when you put that in your calculator and you divide 50 by 100, you'll see that you're going to get 0.5 grams. So always put that in your calculator to be sure. Our next problem says 8.5 grams of active ingredient, in other words, the drug, is in 500 grams of a compounded cream. What's the final concentration? Remember, concentration is active ingredient over total ingredients times 100. So in this case, the active ingredient is 18.5 grams, and it says it's in the 500 grams. We don't have to add it because it's already in it. It tells us right here, is in. So 18.5 in 500. We're going to divide those and then multiply by 100, and I rounded to the nearest tenth to get 3.7%. So make sure you're looking for those key terms. It's in or is added to or whatever, but just make sure you're looking for those key words. Here's our next one. We have 6 grams of salicylic acid. That's our active ingredient. And here you go. It says is added to 94 grams of an ointment base. So since we're adding it to, we have to take that 6 and add it to the 94. So we have a total of 100 grams of product. So the active ingredient is 6. The total product is 100. 6 out of 100, and then times 100 is going to give us our percent, which in this case is 6%. The last topic that we're going to talk about is dilutions. This is just a review also. Remember, a dilution is when we are taking some concentrated substance and we are making it weaker. We have a formula that we can use. Your textbook has the exact same formula, but it's just arranged a little bit differently. I've put it into a multiplication problem rather than a division problem, just to make it a little bit easier. What you have to remember is that you need to keep your beginning concentration and your beginning quantity together. So on the left side, we have our stronger substance, what we're starting with, and the amount that we're starting with, and we want to end with our final concentration, and final quantity. So this is our beginning amount on this side, our ending amounts are on this side. So identifying those, whether we're starting with them or ending with them, is really key in using this formula. So for example, this one says how much 8% solution can you make? So that means that's what we want to end up with. We want to end up with 8%. We're going to start with 500 mils of a 20% solution. So we're always starting with something stronger and making it weaker. So the starting percent is 20, so that goes on this side. The starting quantity is 500, so it's going on this side as well. We want to end up with an 8%, but we don't know how much, so that's why I use the N. 20 times 500 is 10,000. 8 times N is just 8N. We're going to divide both sides by 8, and we get a final quantity of 1,250. Now, as you are doing these problems, one thing to keep in mind, your beginning strength is always going to be higher than your ending strength. That's the whole idea behind a dilution. You're making something weaker. And your beginning volume is always going to be smaller than what you end up with. We're adding water or some other base. We're making more stuff. So this number always has to be the larger one, the one we end up with. So kind of keep that in your back of your mind, and that will help you check your work on these problems. This one says how much of a 10% solution will you need to produce 150 mils of a 6%. Produce means that's what we want to end up with. So that's why the 6 and the 150 went on this side. The 10 is what we're starting with. So 10N is going to equal 900. Divide both sides by 10, and you're going to get a final quantity of 90 milliliters. And last but not least, we have a stock solution of lidocaine 4%. And it wants to know how much of the stock solution is needed to produce, there's that word produce again, so that tells you that's what we're making, 1 ounce of a 1% solution. Now the first thing I did was take that 1 ounce and change it to milliliters. So 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. And I want to produce 1% and 30 milliliters of it. And I'm going to use the 4%. So 4N is going to equal 30. Divide both sides by 4 to get my final quantity of 7.5 milliliters. Again, if anyone has any problems or questions as you go throughout the week, please make sure you're reaching out to me and asking those questions. My number is right here at the bottom, 618-979-4520. You can also reach me by email at any time. It's sadavis@studymedical.com. So either one of those ways are ways to reach me, and it's any day, any time. If I don't answer, I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks, and have a great day.